I grew up alone most of the time because the three elder siblings was already in school. So obviously, if you're a child and you're alone at home, you start running around in the street. So being alone, running around in the street, I started getting abused by men that was lurking the streets. And I actually started, I was confused because, sometimes what you live with, you learn, and you learn, you practice, you become. So I used to see my mom with other men and them touching her and that kind of stuff. So obviously when the guy started abusing me in the street, I confused that with love. And then one day, the welfare just came and put us in a little Volkswagen and take us to court. And that was the end of us being at home. When they took us away from home, going into hostels where there were hostel parents, all of a sudden these hostel parents also started abusing, not just me, but many other children. And I think my story is not just what I went through, but there's so many other kids that go through the same journey that I went as a child. So by the time I turned 9 years old, I actually got raped by two army guys. And that actually was one of the worst things that ever happened to me. I mean, by this time, I really hated my mother. Um, I hated her because we got taken away from home. I hated her because she couldn't take us to live with her. I hated her because every time I went, I started running away. Obviously, I started rebelling and started running away. So every time I got to her, she would call the cops and then they would pick me up and, had to go back to. So I was in and out of different children's homes, place of safeties, rebelling because, you need acceptance. You need something to fill this void that's not there anymore. I start making the wrong decisions, in order to find this love. So I was in matric when I fell pregnant. And all of a sudden, the choice was made for me that I had to give the child up for adoption because I couldn't take the child with me. I had no place to go. So something in me crushed at that time. So I went to Joburg, and that night I met up with a gang called the Hells Angels and got raped by about 8 or 9 of them and left in the street. So that's where my journey started, because the only people who came to my rescue was the prostitutes. And then at 18, I got involved with a very notorious fraud syndicate, and I landed up in jail for fraud. And when I got into Kroonstad, I said, I'm not going to get abused again. So I became the abuser when I got out of Kroonstad, because then the prostitution just escalated to another level. The drug use escalated to another. So it just progressed all the time, just progressed. I was very well known on the streets. I was, people were scared of me. So for many years, I was called Big Mama. I had an alias. I didn't operate as Rita. My name was Cassie. Everything fell apart. For the last 12 years of my prostitution years, that went on for about 30 years, it just went totally chaotic. Even if you don't think there's a purpose for your life, I think God still knows what He wants to do with you. And in 2005, I actually did not do anything wrong, and I got picked up. And I believe that's where God just took control and said, look here, if I'm not going to step in now, you're going to die a horrible death anyway. something you need to change. And they picked me up and I got sentenced for 3 months. That's how I landed up in Westville, 2005. And miraculously, things started changing from then on.
So I think if we can just take a moment just to give Rita a round of applause for, yeah. So thank you, Rita, for being so brave and so vulnerable, and for just allowing God to share your story with us today. So to get started, will you take us through when you say you landed up in Westville Prison and that's when God intervened and things started to change? What happened?
Laura, before I start, can I maybe just say that we can just give God a hand? Yeah. Obviously, he is the only one that can bring us out of the darkness into the light. Yeah, so Laura, sorry. 2005, when I got picked up, and this time I really didn't do anything wrong, but I was so well known in the point that just walking in the street at 1 o'clock at night, they thought I was doing wrong anyway. So I got taken to court and I got sentenced, and I was totally broken. I was emotionally, spiritually, every which way you can look at, I was broken. And this is why I said God must have thought, look, if I'm not going to do something here, then you're going to die anyway, because I felt like I was going to die. And then all of a sudden, things started happening that gave me a slight sense of hope that, you know what, maybe there's some hope for me somewhere, because last night the pastor opened here with the words and he said, isiZulu is a language or a sound in heaven. And one of the first things that happened to me in Westville was when I went to breakfast in the morning. And for the first time, of all the times that I've been in and out of jails, in and out of police cells, it was the first time where I saw so many women of one culture together, and they started singing, and I think something in my heart for the first time sort of opened up, because this was the most beautiful sound that I've ever heard. And I thought, if this sound is a sound that is in heaven, I would like to go there one day, and I didn't know God. I didn't want to know him. I was very angry with God. I was angry with the world. I was angry with everybody that came my way, because everybody always just came and said, if you don't turn from your wicked ways, you're going to go to hell. And, that night I laid in my cell, and I might have been psychotic. I might have seen it, because I was coming off drugs for the first time in 30 years. I didn't had anything to use, so I might have seen things, but I started hearing this chirping, and then I saw this little bird on my cell, on the bar of my cell. And this bird was chirping away, and for the first time, I'm hearing this sound, and it's a life out there that I haven't heard for so many years. And I think that's where something started in my heart by saying, sure, there is another life out there, but how am I going to get to that? Because nobody is going to help me anyway, because nothing has ever worked out for me when I tried to come right. And I was the only Afrikaans speaking lady from about 200 girls at that time in Westville. And all of a sudden, the Sunday, they called me and they said, Rita, do you want to go to a meeting with church ladies? And that's where I met Jill Marshall from City Hill Church. They came to do ministry at church, and I think she planted the seed because she went and she got somebody to come and visit me in prison. And when this lady came to prison, I think, God is so specific what He wants in your life. And He knew exactly who I needed, because I didn't needed somebody that was just going to talk and, tell me about the love of God. And because everybody did this before I met this lady. And she came to prison, and her name is Joey Duplessis. And man, I met my match that day. This lady came, and somewhere deep, somebody also mentioned here today, you can see the love. It doesn't matter who you are, but in that moment, I think, even if the meeting didn't go so well, in that moment, I knew that here was a woman, and she is sitting somewhere in the auditorium, that shows the love of God. And this lady told me straight, I'm going to give you a choice. And this was the first time that anybody actually gave me a choice to say, you're going to do this or this, and then this can happen. And she said, you're going to finish your sentence. If you finish it and you want help, you can phone me, and I will do everything in my power, obviously through the grace of God and the strength of God, to get you on the right path.
And just to give a little bit of context, so Joey runs Careline. Can you just tell us a little bit about Careline?
Careline, when I think about Careline, I see community, and I see love, and I see Joey. God, obviously, as the big umbrella, and Careline is there to give wings to people, to fly, because at Careline, what happens is you get taken out of your struggles, out of the hurts and the pain, and you get made new. So if anything, there's so much I can say about Careline, but Careline is there for the community and to show love.
Wonderful.
To anybody, from a 2-week-old baby to an 89-year-old man or woman.
So Rita, your journey to finding freedom, and freedom from addiction, from hurt, from brokenness, what has that been like? I know you've shared it hasn't been an easy road. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
It's been a long journey, 15 years to be exact. And, in the beginning, it was very difficult because I needed to get rid of the self-condemnation, the self-hatred. I had no self-esteem. I had no self-dignity. I had no self-worth, no value. And I didn't believe that anybody could actually show me enough love to make me feel that I could come out of that and become somebody. And Joey actually became my teacher. She became my mentor, and she became my spiritual guide. And throughout the last 15 years, I had to physically deal with a lot of stuff in order to get to the place where I am today. It was physical working on things, but throughout this 15 years, first, one thing that she told me is we have to break down the barriers. Because there's so many barriers, there's so much bitterness, there's so much hatred, there's so much stuff that you need to work through in order to receive this love that you felt you never had. And it was going to take a lot of work. And one of the things that she made me do very early in my recovery was I had to testify, because she told me only the truth will set you free. And that day, I believe, was the day where my life started really changing, because I had to speak truth. And I think crying that day, God started healing my heart from the inside, as I do believe that tears bring healing. So
what was one of the most difficult things that Jesus challenged you to do in finding your wholeness and your healing?
we can be here until tomorrow, but but I think the most profound thing that had to happen was forgiveness. I couldn't move forward. I kept on saying, how am I going to do this? How am I going to overcome this? How am I gonna... And she kept on saying, you've got to forgive. You have to first forgive yourself, and then you're going to have to start forgiving. Now, ironically, and this is how specific God is, the person who was responsible for most of the hurt and the pain and our household struggles was somebody called Joey. And here he put a woman, and he was a male, and here he put a woman in my life that was showing me more love than what I've ever received, not just by giving me what I needed, but disciplining me and showing me hardcore stuff on how to overcome what I needed to overcome with. It took courage, and it took discipline, and it took willingness. But the first thing she told me, if you don't do this, you might as well take your bag and walk. And that was, I had to submit. I had to submit, not halfway, not 3/4 way. I had to submit to a woman. A woman smaller than me. And she said to me, she had her finger in my face, and she said, I don't care that you came off the street. I don't care that you were a prostitute. I don't care how many people you abused. But I'm not scared of you. But she showed me all the love, because without the love, I wouldn't have been sitting here today.
And I know one of the big things in your journey to forgiveness was your forgiving your mother. And Joey also had quite a key role in that.
Yeah, that day I wanted to run away, because I hated my mother. I hated my mother because of everything. I blamed her for everything that happened in my life, just because she made the welfare take us away from home. And Joey said, nothing is going to happen if you don't physically go and do what you have to do. And I was forced. I was forced. I didn't want to do it. I was getting a small little salary from Kaylan, and she said, "You're going to take that money and you're going to go and you're going to fix up your mother's place. You're going to buy her new bedding. You're going to paint her place." And I thought, oh my word. But I went to Pretoria and I did what she told me because I made a pact that I was going to submit 100%. I went to go and do what I did. And that day, phew, I think that's where I met Jesus. Yeah, because as I cleaned my mother's place, I hated her. You know, she never called me on my name. And all I wanted was her to call me on my name, which she did before she died last year. But while I was cleaning her place, and I'll tell you, the cockroaches were flying. And I cleaned about 7 black bags of dirt. But I believe that was the turning point where my heart softened and I could start giving love to other people. Yep.
Amazing. Wow. So, Rita, I mean, when I look at you, when we all look at you, I mean, you are such a powerful picture of the redeeming power of the love of Jesus Christ. And you're a new creation in Christ. What does your life look like now? Tell us, like, what is life like?
You know, as a child, I always wanted to become a teacher. And that obviously fell out because of, you know, what started happening. But I am teaching. I'm a life skills facilitator at Kaylan. Yeah. I also did a vision board about a year and a half ago with my cell group. And on the vision board, I've actually pinpointed there, you know, I want to go on mission trips. I want to speak on women's conferences. I want to become a motivational speaker. And, you know, God, the timing is just so perfect because it's taken me 15 years of teaching, Joey, of teaching and submitting in order for God to have given her permission. God's giving her permission to let me go and say, okay, you know what? Now you're ready. Now you're ready to go and do what God has called you to do. And people has prophesied on my life that I will one day become a motivational speaker. I am doing Toastmasters at the moment. So yes, a lot of things that I've asked God for in the last couple of years are busy coming true.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this morning about the story we heard about the life of Joseph and just the journey you've been on and the platform God has given you to share your incredible testimony. Just one last thing before we close. On a recent mission trip you went on, you had a miraculous breakthrough. Just share with everyone what happened on that trip.
Phew. You know, I've left all the vices because I had to. But there was one thing I couldn't leave, and that was smoking. And I was smoking about 3 packets of cigarettes a day on a bad day. 2. And obviously, God understands my personality, my temperament, and He knows that I can't do much in my own. So He must have thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to do this for you as well. But again, He brought people that showed so much love. Because I went on this mission trip and there's Papa G and his team, I think, are sitting here from City Hill Church, and I went to Mozambique is it Swaziland? No, Swaziland. And these guys didn't want to leave me alone. They made me so angry. They were like, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yeah. Uh, do you want to be prayed over? No. They were making me so angry because I thought we're here for something else. It's not about me. But this one guy, I tell you, he wouldn't leave me alone. And then when we started praying, he came up and, yes, he was persistent. And he made this thing on my head. And the next minute I was, I was down. And man, I tell you, I started coughing. It felt like I was going to die. And my eyes was popping out of my sockets. And when I came up, I must have looked like the devil ready to. But you know what? They prayed, and I believe fully now that where 2 or 3 people pray together, there's power. There's power. And I do believe in miracles now because I went down, I came up, and I never smoked again. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. Why don't you all stand together just before Jax comes up? Thank you. You're welcome to be seated again. Hopefully the big point, I mean, what an incredible story. And that was just the highlights package. But it's the incredible love of God that he has for every single one of us. But I trust you also saw in that story that it wasn't that God's love uses human agent. Jill Marshall going into a prison, meeting many people, but Rita in particular, and Joey Duplessis. Now, not all of us are called to be a Joey who heads up a halfway house, which is what Caroline is. But Joey, it's so great that you could make it through today, and we just want to honor you as well for the incredible love that you have showed so many people. Before Jax comes up, I'd love us to just close our eyes together. When God describes what